Welcome. This podcast is a collaboration of Religica and URI, United Religions Initiative.
Valeria Vergani. Originally from Italy, Valeria moved to Canada in 2012 to attend Quest University Canada, where she studied contemporary expressions of Tibetan Buddhism in the Kingdom of Bhutan. Valeria serves as a member of the URI North America Leadership Council and Global Trustee for North America, and she works as Interfaith Coordinator for City in Focus Foundation, an interdenominational Christian foundation based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Take a listen.
You live currently in Canada, is that right?
Correct.
Since 2012?
Since 2012.
But earlier, born in Italy, I think.
Born and raised, absolutely, in Italy.
Ah, great. What part of Italy are you from?
I am from Verona, or just outside Verona, so northeastern Italy.
Just tell us a little bit about what we can see when we think of your small town.
So I grew up in San Pietro in Cariano, which is about 10 miles from the city of Verona. And San Pietro is in a valley called Valpolicella, which is a famous wine-producing region in Italy. So you can imagine hills full of vineyards, wineries sprouting up here and there, churches on every hill, and little houses everywhere where people live, people gather, people talk a lot, eat a lot. And I grew up going to the church of my hometown, and I could literally walk up from my house to the church up on top of the hill, look at the whole town from that hill. And that's where I was born, and that's where I've been raised and lived until I was 17 years old. Then I spent 2 years in Poland, in Warsaw, at an international school, an American school there. Part of my family at the time was living there, and they graciously invited me to join them to be able to get an international school experience. That opened the door for me to go to Canada, where I've never been before, and I didn't know absolutely anybody. But I found a program that I liked at university, and I wanted to follow my passion, which was interreligious dialogue. And that's the reason that I sort of moved halfway across the world to learn more about that, get my degree in religious studies, and be able to pursue this.
And I have here you also have studied Tibetan Buddhism in the Kingdom of Bhutan, is that right?
That's correct. That was through my experience at Quest University in Canada. Outside of Vancouver, they had a partnership with Royal Thimphu College in Bhutan. And because I was looking to study religious studies, I had this incredible opportunity to be able to go and live in Thimphu, Bhutan for a whole semester. And as part of that, to write about higher education and Buddhism in Bhutan and to really learn more about what that means within that context. So that was my research at the undergraduate level.
So what inspired you from a very young age, it sounds like, to say, I'm going to study interreligious engagement or pluralism or any of these? What is it that was kind of the spark that has been a part of your journey so far?
I was always very curious about other faiths and traditions because I came from a really homogenous little town in northern Italy where everybody around me was Catholic. And we had this rich Catholic history, so I was born into that and I grew up with that, and I have deep love for my faith tradition. But I also was curious, and when I was about 15 years old, I found this book, or actually my sister gave me this book, from Anthony de Mello, who's a Jesuit priest, was a Jesuit priest, working and writing in India about the relationship between Christianity and Eastern philosophy. Interesting. And I was fascinated by that. It opened a whole different world of thinking about my faith tradition. And I sort of just wondered, what could it mean for me if I just studied this and kept working at this? How would it change me, and what kind of person would that make me? That I have no idea I could ever be, because the small town in which I've grown up, so rich of culture, tradition, faith, is one thing, but there's so much in the world. And that also helped me to understand that if faith was so important to me, to my culture, to how I grew up, it was probably also just as important for other people. And I wanted to be connected to that. I wanted to travel. I have 2 older siblings. They're 18 years older and 16 years older. And they encouraged me to do that. And I saw them go off into the world and do wonderful things. And so I wanted to do that. And for me, the gateway to really understand the world was through faith traditions. And so that's what inspired me and sort of drove me and keeps driving me.
Let me ask you a little bit about what it means to be a co-convener at the InterSpiritual Sustainability Council. What are the aims of this council in terms of interspiritual sustainability? Could you say more to that?
We're working at the intersection of interfaith peace building, spirituality and interspirituality, so the sacred oneness at the heart of every religious tradition, and the big and urgent needs of our society and of our geographical bioregions, such as the one in which I work, which is the Vancouver bioregion, the Salish Sea bioregion. These needs are environmental, they're social, they're political. We have needs around Indigenous rights. And the work that we do with the InterSpiritual Sustainability Council is to convene our group of us, a cross-section of interfaith leaders and activists, religious leaders and activists, environmentalists, Indigenous leaders and activists, those working in the nonprofit sector, to talk about how can we work together, build bridges within our geographical, ecological region of the Salish Sea to tackle some of these questions. In October 2017, we held a bioregional gathering, which was meant to do just that. And out of that bioregional gathering, we'd forged connections at all levels of our group, of our communities, to really start to think about what does it mean to draw on the resources of faith, of spirituality, to forge a planetary resilience model, a bioregional resilience model that can help us to create the communities we need to tackle some of these very, very urgent challenges.
So what is a planetary resiliency model? Take that apart for us a little bit.
First of all, planetary. Planetary means we have to think globally at this moment in time, that we know we're so globalized, we're so interconnected that we cannot but think globally, planetarily in the sense of thinking about the Earth and what it does for us and how something that we do here, how we take care of the water or pollute the water here affects people on the other side of the world very easily. Resilience. We know that there's change underway. This is because already what we have done to Mother Earth has deep impact on our climate around us, the environment around us, and we're going to see these effects. These effects are going to ripple in our communities for a very, very long time. Sustainability is important in terms of planning for a future that can be sustained, but resilience is even more important in terms of a response to the change that's already being created. So we focus on resilience as a response that's informed by the wisdom of our traditions in order to address needs that are planetary. Model because we need to model this kind of behavior at the level of politics, of society, of faith, institutions, of all kinds of communities that need to come together to think about how can we be resilient and how can we do so in a way that takes care of the whole planet.
You've lived in Italy and in Poland and in Canada, and you've traveled, you've been to the Kingdom of Bhutan, you've seen a lot. And you've been engaged in interreligious dialogue. What are you hopeful for on the one hand, and what are you concerned about given those experiences related to some of the things you're talking about right now for our sustainable future?
I'm hopeful that people share values in all the places where I've lived, all the communities I've been part of, share values of generosity, kindness, compassion, wisdom, however those are expressed within the realities that those communities inhabit, that these shared values can help us to build bridges across difficult times. That as I have found a home in my hometown, and then I have found it in Poland, and then I have found it in Canada, and I have found it in Bhutan, that we can all find a home together because our commonalities are more than our differences, and our shared needs are more than our competitions and our scarcity. What is worrying to me is that we've created a system, and by we I mean predominantly the Western world, has created a societal system that distances us from the source of our shared common life, both in the sense of our environment, which gives us everything that we need to survive and to thrive, in the sense of our intergenerational connections between elders, children, our family system, our societal system, which for a long time has been rooted in faith and in faith institutions, that as we have developed and continued to rely on a highly capitalist, exploitative, extractive framework for sustaining our life, especially here in North America and Europe, that we have erased or neglected some of those connections that really allow us to be at our best and really allow us to thrive in our own communities and to build peace and to build sustainability across the world. And so I'm concerned about that because the work that we need to do to a large extent demands that we rethink our systems, that we get close to our roots once more, that we rethink what it means to be together. And doing so is a scary thing, because it really means that we have to that I, as a young person who's traveled so much, who's building a career, who is studying, I really have to ask myself, who do I want to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? What society do I want to live in? And the society that I want to live in is not necessarily a society that has birthed me or in which I've been raised. Yeah. And that means I need to have a lot of courage to think creatively and to not fool myself thinking that I depend and that my well-being depends on career success or wealth.
Is that a generational thing too? I mean, I hear a lot of those who are millennials or below today saying, my vocation, like how my voice is expressed in the world, how I do that in praxis-based ways, is more important than having a career in some sort of traditional way. Do you see that generationally? You think there's a difference there?
I think so. I can't speak for other generations. For my generation, for myself, what I've grown up knowing is that the world is changing very fast. So no matter what happens, it's likely that my job at 25 will be drastically different than my job at 35, 45, 55. And what gives me value and meaning is that I express my values, that I live my values into the world. And from that, I can draw a long-term feeling of prosperity, abundance, and self-worth, more than a specific place in a society that's changing so fast. I know that place won't be there, whatever that means, in 10, 20 years. But we're all evolving at such a fast and rapid pace that our sense of identity has to be really fluid. As I live in this moment of uncertainty, my question for myself is, how do I ensure that what I create today will lay down the path for the person I want to be tomorrow, beyond what I can foresee, beyond what I can realize at the moment? And spiritual practice, such as contemplative practice, for example, is one way to think about this in terms of a routine that I have every day that shapes me beyond what I can realize today. But that 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, I'm a different person because of this practice, and I couldn't imagine the person that I wanted to be. At a societal level, this question becomes, how do we operationalize our values such that we can keep ourselves accountable to the principles that we want to have as our guiding principles in our society? And that means creating new policies that we haven't created before. It means creating new institutions that we haven't created before. It means working at the intersection of culture, religion, race, history in ways that we have never done before, because we have created a society that isn't sustainable. That means we've created structures that don't answer to our values, because we have a value of sustainability, because we have a value of helping the next generation to be healthy, because all of us want that, yet we haven't created the structures that will allow us to do that. So my question is, how do we operationalize our values in an enduring way? And I think that will take us some thinking that we've obviously haven't done before, but that maybe we're on the cusp of doing, because we realize that this is an urgent matter, and we have the tools in terms of interfaith peace building, for example. We've developed these tools in the past 100 years, in the past 50 years. We can use these tools to move ours to a place where our structures reflect our values.
If you would like to know more about United Religions Initiative, read stories of interfaith in action, visit www.uri.org. And to learn more about Religica and our allies, take a look at www.religica.org. Thanks.